Shooting the family dog. I sit atop a beech log that has been pushed above the vegetation line by a faraway and unknown storm. The log has been here every time I have, so it must have been deposited by a storm surge of a winter long past. Given the quality of the wood and state of deterioration, I would guess it has been at least 10 years, but not more than 20. It is set in a depression overgrown on 3 sides, obstructing my peripheral view of the sea. Into the slice of beach I can see wanders an old man, stepping carefully backwards in a crouch over rocks and clumps of seaweed, camera with a long lens held to his eye. Footnote: it could have been a telephoto lens, but nice results can also be had for portraits of up to 10 or 20 feet with a good macro lens. The shallower depth of field can produce nice backdrops when the available light is sufficient. After several moments I lean forward to see his target through the brush, a boy of 10 or 12 trailing behind him, disinterested. An old yellow dog saunters beside him, tail wagging sluggish and listlessly behind it. Together the couple give off an odor of utter boredom. The dog is in the process of breaking down into senility, an anti-puppy, and the boy is wallowing in impending puberty, just at that age at which nature walks with the family begin to lose their appeal. A grandfather is surreptitiously lining up a shot of his laggard grandson as he meanders, oblivious and kicking rocks. He kneels to get a low angle for his shot. He has trouble both reaching the ground and assuming a stable position on the unreliable loose rocks, and I smile. I try to imagine the final shot on this fog-bound evening, boy and dog up front and in perfect focus with the largest aperture possible, a wild, fuzzy sea to the right, the dramatic cliffs and far-off cape to the left. If not rendered in detail and relief, then at least suggested subconsciously by the blue gloom cast through the heavy cloud, jumbles of rocks in the right places and drift logs making lines that add a geometrical sensibility to the composition. Beyond them 4 others wander into the frame of what would be my shot were I to take one, which I'm not. The others are busily snapping one another and laughing, shots of everything they see, logs and rocks, the sky, the great wide-open ramshackle chaos of the ocean. What we have here is a family of photographers, or at least all but the dog and the youngest member, perhaps. Initially, I think I've witnessed an iconic family moment, the day Grandpa got that great shot of Billy, but now I have to wonder what life is like as the youngest member of a family of photographers. How many great shots has Billy already posed for today? Maybe wily old Grandpa has been shooting his grandson all day, from every possible angle, and in every light with every lens, all vacation long. Maybe Billy isn't unwitting and bored, but annoyed and bored. Did Grandpa's great shot reflect that? Like so much else that happens around me on this long road, like stray asteroids in erratic orbit around a vagabond sun, I'll never know. This appears to be a moment within a family history, a commonly shared event, and the photo itself hard documentation to support memories of fun. I've just witnessed the event, the taking of the photo, but the context is as much a mystery to me as it will be when the photo is developed and printed or framed and hung on a wall or held tightly to a breast, if any of that will ever happen. It is a theoretical mystery inherent not only in every photograph, but also in every photographer, subject, and setting, a mystery inherent in the act of photography itself. It is a flexible mystery that changes over time due not to the accumulation of clues, I will never find any, and those in a position to look for such things rarely do, but because the context changes around the photo, the way roots grow around a boulder. Photos can be used to remember cherished loved ones or places a family holds dear, or they can be used as blackmail, as disputed items in a divorce, as reminders of moments that now, in the future, may take on dark or bittersweet tones. The nature of the photograph itself changes over time because the people change. Not to put too fine a point on it, some day the grandfather will be gone, the boy grown, and the family still wandering the misty beaches, cameras in hand, or not. What will the photo I've just witnessed mean to them then? Will it be a prized family heirloom or a forgotten file on a hard drive waiting to be melted back into its constituent recyclable parts, gone and never existed in the first place? Will it simply be usurped by a better photo or lost in the flood of images this snap-happy family must accumulate in a single day, let alone a lifetime? As a newborn photograph, it could turn out to be any of these things or something else altogether. Newborn photos of newborn humans are about the most malleable things I can imagine. A baby photo is cute when the baby is still a baby, embarrassing at puberty, funny in middle age, tragic or sublime, or both, at old age, and something else entirely after the photo's subject has passed on. Projected even further through time, a photo has the potential to be not only a useful document in a family history, but in a national one, or it could even be a vital contribution to the greater story of the history of mankind itself, documents on extreme trajectories. Or it can be lost and forgotten, left in a box somewhere, destroyed by water and indifference. None of this can ever be known when the button is pressed. The act of photography belies a natural transparency of motive. My father was into photography as a hobby before I was born. He dabbled in color, but his true love was always as simple as black and white, as still can be seen in the photos. I once discovered his old equipment in a pile in a hidden corner of our basement. Tripods and lenses, filters that roll across floors and are fun to look through and throw, stacks of developing pans and bottles of solution, negative projectors and enlarging apparati. Somewhere in there must have also been the camera itself, its frame made of the hard, sturdy plastic of the 60s, anchored atop a rickety tripod of real metal. What I remember most vividly is the dust that had accumulated during its years in the basement as it sat untouched. But then everything left in basements ends up either dusty or moldy, as a rule of the universe. When I asked about the equipment, my father's latent interest in photography, on low flicker for years, reignited itself in a last spasm of image-taking, an Indian summer in Kodachrome. I lost track of the equipment after he and my mother divorced and he moved out, taking it all with him. He must have sold it. But for a few weeks in the groovy 70s he was back into it with a passion. For me it was an adventure, something new and unexpected under the sun. This is the period from which many of my contributions to the family album, or albums, after the divorce, were made, as a subject only, being too young to work such a complicated machine as his camera. Footnote: shortly after this I was given a hand-me-down from my brother, but I quickly misplaced it. My early interest waned as easily as almost everything else I discovered at that age, always moving on to the next thing, as must be my nature. I have since memories of that brief period at least, the very unnatural stench of developing fluid that wrecks the sense of smell if one gets too close, like burning sulfur. As a doctor's son and being not unfamiliar with the sterile non-odor of science, it smelled to me like embalming fluid. The magical biding of time as the paper swims in first one chromium pan and then another, the image coming to life out of nothingness over the course of a few minutes, and most of all the blood-red glow of the dark-room lamp, a clinical illumination in a shade of red that seems to project no shadows, permeating the room and soaking it, bathing real life in true color like the pages of film stock dripping moisture from the clothesline hung for the purpose. I play at my father's feet with action figures and army men, my imaginary battleground ablaze with the murderous rage of slaughter, the deep red glow of the tinted sodium lamp transformed like magic into the awful aura of Mars, god of war. Footnote: soldiers in the American Civil War described a similar red glow that they witnessed in the heat of the most agonizing hand-to-hand battles, all-day slaughters in which, in the chaos of smoke, explosions, screams of misery and moans of death, the entire landscape seemed to take on red overtones, a phenomenon probably as ancient as war itself. I play with zeros and ones now. Still I wonder at what might have been lost even if I myself have not felt it. I know there was once a tactile pleasure in film photography that is no longer there, and for me, aside from a few weeks in the late 70s, was never there at all, as if something were missing.